Ladies and gentlemen, this is an article in the New York Sun. Florida U.S. attorney sent to open criminal investigation into John Brennan and other Obama-era officials for conspiracy to undermine Trump. There's a grand jury right now in Florida. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Looking at 18 U.S. Code 241. If two or more persons conspire to do exactly what Brennan, Comey, Clinton, and others did, they tried to level this statute, amusingly enough, against Trump. Obviously didn't work. He became president again. They, sadly for them, did commit crimes. Hit subscribe to this channel. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this. Brennan, Comey, Clinton will be indicted under these statutes. This is in addition to the upcoming indictment of Brennan, the upcoming conviction of Comey pertaining to lying under oath. So there's two separate investigations, convictions, or indictments, and then convictions, and trials, and then convictions. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the handwritten note from Comey. We'll get to that in a second. This is the handwritten note from Brennan, proving that they knew Hillary Clinton created a plan to tie President Trump with Putin, even though she wanted to elevate, according to their own emails, President Trump, Ted Cruz, and also Dr. Ben Carson. They wanted to elevate Trump until they lost. That's what their own email said. Then they turned and created a complete phony fake Russia hoax with a Steele dossier. But let's get started. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this. Let's go.
Jury investigation is now underway regarding the A grand jury investigation is now underway regarding the Trump-Russia hoax. The media enablers that peddled the lie for years, though, are circling the wagons.
This is extraordinarily stupid. It's extraordinarily stupid on so many counts. Barack Obama had nothing to do with this by anybody's accounts.
We're all for transparency on any potential corruption, right? But this is something that has been combed over for a decade now.
I think they're trying to create the appearance of progress in this investigation without actually making any progress.
They all did their job, right? For the 4 years, 5 years. Meanwhile, President Trump, he's awaiting answers.
I have nothing to do. Pam is doing a great job. I have nothing to do with it. I will tell you this. They deserve it. I was happy to hear it. I actually read it just like you did. I have nothing to do with it.
Here with reaction is Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence. Director Gabbard, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Laura.
There's a report tonight from the Federalist that the DOJ is actually asking you for more documents in its grand jury probe. Is that true? And what are they asking for now?
That is true, Laura, and I just want to point out how important this is, that Attorney General Pam Bondi, through the Department of Justice, is taking this necessary first step toward accountability, which is essential for the American people to begin to have any kind of trust in the integrity of our democratic republic. I met with the Department of Justice prosecutors today, and yes, they are committed to leaving no stone unturned as they conduct this grand jury investigation and find the truth. Obviously, we've already handed over the documents that we've declassified and released publicly over the last few weeks. They have more questions, and they're going to be really taking a deep dive into this again, looking everywhere to find the truth and conduct this very serious investigation.
You heard the media reaction. A lot of these same people were just buying lock, stock, and barrel what was sold to them during the 2016 election. But they're essentially saying, this is all old news. This is such a stupid political move on their part. And to that, you say?
They are using the same old tactic that the deep state's propaganda arm in the media uses. Whenever they come across something that is true and that doesn't go along with whatever their narrative is that they're trying to shove down the throats of the American people, they first usually ignore it, as they did when I first released these documents a couple of weeks ago. They tried to ignore it when they realized that they weren't going to get away with this, that this story was going to continue breathing life life. We continued releasing new documents. Then they decided, oh, we'll take this approach of say, oh, this is nothing. There's nothing really to see here. This is bizarre. This is a conspiracy. These are the things that they do over and over and over again. And the next step they will take when they feel that they are not succeeding in getting rid of this truth that we have uncovered for the American people, then they will go down the route of we must destroy and smear and attack the credibility of those who are delivering the truth to the American people. They've done.
So the media, unfortunately, is an extension of the Democratic Party or the Never Trump Republican, whatever the faction that's still left. Those are basically dinosaurs within the Republican Party that are anti-Trump. They're not very important at all. But the media has served as part of the public relations wing of the Democratic Party. If truth was at the heart of journalism, BuzzFeed would never have published the Steele dossier. Imagine if Trump and Giuliani purchased a dossier that said Hillary or Harris or Biden were in a Moscow hotel room enjoying a certain type of activity. They would never have allowed that to take place. And so you have journalists who literally worked. Well, okay, they engaged in quote-unquote journalism, literally working with sources who happened to leak information that was completely fabricated. So a journalist could say, oh, that he or she has a source. The source could be a corrupt former FBI agent or a person like Brennan or Comey or anyone else that set up and framed Trump, leaking lies into the mainstream media, leaking lies into the American media. And then judges look at that and sign FISA warrants and say, oh, it's public record that the Steele dossier is raw intelligence, or that there's buzz around Trump and Russia. That buzz, that media frenzy was created by leaks specifically directed from people like Comey and Brennan, almost certainly. Check this out.
Done this to President Trump. They've done this to me. They've done this to so many different people, once again, who are trying to tell the American people the truth and expose these people, many of whom you just showed, for who they are as the propaganda arm of the deep state, which would have no power and no influence if they weren't able to feed their lies into a willing spokesperson through the propaganda media.
Now, Director, you said there was irrefutable evidence that Obama was the mastermind of this intelligence manipulation and the perpetuation of the Russia hoax. What is that irrefutable evidence for our viewers tonight?
Yeah, Laura, as you were playing those clips of these people like Morning Joe seemingly befuddled, saying that by no account is any of this true, I would challenge them to see if they've actually read the documents, every single page of the documents that we've released over the last couple of weeks. If not, go to odni.gov, It's all right there for anyone to see. And those who go in and read this will see how President Obama directed that a National Security Council meeting be called to talk about Russia, that the report that came out of that meeting was filled with tasks that were delivered by James Clapper's assistant to John Brennan and to other elements of the intelligence community. John Brennan was the head of the CIA at the time, all saying per the president's direction.
Here we have Brennan's notes. Check this out. So they're going to lie about it and say that, well, we didn't know, and that is of course a lie that they've told. That's why that's why Brennan will be indicted. But check this out. It's within their own notes. And the notes were, they tried to destroy this evidence in burn bags. But check this out.
This morning.
Great to see you, Maria. Great to be back with you.
And thank you for all of your truth-telling over the years. We will speak with Devin Nunes, who opened this up wide so many years ago. But I want to get your reaction to what we're seeing now with Tulsi Gabbard highlighting the truth here, as you have done so many years ago.
Well, Maria, before the intelligence community assessment that DNI Gabbard was talking about, and before Devin Nunes' report about that intelligence community assessment, before the Mueller investigation, before Crossfire Hurricane, there was this. In the summer of 2016, U.S. intelligence intercepted Russian intelligence talking about a Hillary Clinton plan to falsely accuse Donald Trump of Russia collusion, to vilify him and smear him with what would become known infamously as the Steele dossier. And Maria, this intelligence was so explosive that John Brennan briefed President Obama, Vice President Biden, Jim Clapper, James Comey, the entire national security team, telling them about this Hillary Clinton plan. Again, but think about this, Maria. That was in August of 2016, and yet it wasn't until more than 4 years later, in October of 2020, when I found, after an exhaustive search, John Brennan's handwritten notes and the underlying intelligence behind it that revealed exactly what happened. So for a 4-year period of time, the truth about the origins of the Russian...
And here are the handwritten notes. You can read approved by Hillary Clinton. Alleged approved by Hillary Clinton. Okay. So they knew, Brennan knew and Comey knew that Hillary Clinton was going to set up and frame Trump. And they knew it in real time. And they were helping set up and frame President Trump at the behest of Clinton without a memo. They didn't sign a document, but they all wanted to stop Trump. That was the goal. That's why they're going to be indicted under this conspiracy statute and 18 U.S. Code 371 and other statutes. Because there are handwritten notes, this one from Brennan, this one from Comey, HRC plan to tie Trump. That's James Comey. They are all under oath stating that they had no clue that the Steele dossier was purchased by Clinton, or that Clinton was setting up Trump and filtering the documents through the U.S. government. This is their own handwritten notes, ladies and gentlemen. It's right there. And do you think these are the only pieces of evidence? Of course, they have emails, text messages, whistleblowers. So it's game, set, match. Again, these are conspiracy statutes. This is not only the upcoming indictment of Brennan and the current indictment of Comey are for lying under oath. That's separate. That's a separate thing from the upcoming indictments, the conspiracy statutes where they literally conspired to set up and frame Trump.
Russia collusion hoax was hidden from the American people. And unfortunately, Maria, as you recall, those same people were already at that point in time onto their next hoax, the Hunter Biden laptop. This was a month before the 2020 election. And unfortunately, what we saw with Joe Biden's election was another 4 years to be able to continue to bury the truth. And so it's only now, with Donald Trump having been reelected, that through DNI Gabbard, myself, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, all of this intelligence, all of this evidence that's been hidden and buried from the American people is finally coming to light.
Yeah. We just showed a picture of John Brennan's notes, and I want to go back to those because you just referenced them.
Before we talk about Brennan's notes, which will get him indicted on numerous counts, not only of lying, but also for the conspiracy statutes, again, there's two separate major grand juries. And then there's likely going to be some more. But the issue is they knew that Trump was innocent. That's part of the conspiracy. They knew Donald Trump was innocent. They knew that he had nothing to do with Russia. The whole thing was absurd. Clinton's emails, the campaign emails literally stated that their own campaign, before they lost, wanted to elevate Ted Cruz, Dr. Ben Carson, and Donald Trump. They wanted President Trump to be the nominee. That's why Politico published an article, The Man They Always Wanted. They got who they wanted. I forgot the exact title, but the issue is that they were feeding fake and phony stories into the media, media was publishing, and almost every single article during Trump's first year in the Washington Post and the New York Times said, according to current and former U.S. officials, according to anonymous sources, according to two people according to two people familiar with the matter. Everything was according to people familiar with the matter, according to unnamed sources, according to current and former U.S. officials, according to two U.S. officials, according to one U.S. official. It was all leaked information from people that wanted to create news, not whistleblowers, not actual sources, almost certainly. There are very few, almost certainly, the Washington Post and the New York Times have very few actual sources. Like people who are just whistleblowers who want to expose the truth, whether it's the left or right or Republican or Democrat that gets convicted. There's very few people that are completely apolitical who serve as a source for the Washington Post, New York Times, or anybody else that any other publication that goes up against Trump and tries to destroy Trump just because he's, the adversary politically of Democrats. A source should, if a journalist has a source, that source should be a conduit of truth. That source should give the journalist truth, and the publication should then publish what is actually taking place. What took place during President Trump was, Trump said this. According to U.S. officials, Trump gave classified data to the Russians. According to anonymous sources, Russia had something on Trump. And what they did was filter lies into the public domain. And they made millions of people believe something that was not true. That's why you get 18 U.S. Code 241 and other conspiracy statutes. So that's why you get those statutes. Okay. But let's continue.
These are handwritten notes that John Brennan took during that meeting with Obama and the other top lieutenants, where he writes that Russia is aware of the Hillary Clinton plan to tie Donald Trump to a Russia story. And these notes is something that you highlighted many times, that Devin Nunes highlighted many times. Is this what you're saying was hidden, these handwritten notes and the obvious story right then and there in the meeting with President Obama, where John Brennan was writing notes down as far as what he was telling and discussing with that team?
So, Chad, how's everybody?
Well, think about it, Maria. During that 4-year period of time, think about the countless interviews that Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Jim Clapper, James Comey, John Brennan gave to the public, and testimony that they gave under oath about how Russia was involved in our election. And not one time, not a single time, did they ever reference what became verified intelligence, a Hillary Clinton plan. Verified, Maria, because in 2020, Hillary Clinton's own campaign manager took the oath under penalty of perjury in the trial of Michael Sussman and was asked about this plan and said, yes, there was a plan, and Hillary Clinton personally approved it. So all they did was talk about the fake Steele dossier, but never talked about the true intelligence, the true origins of the Russia collusion hoax, was that this was a Hillary Clinton campaign scheme. Yeah. Really incredible. And, Devin Nunes, your next guest, truly an American hero trying to bring these things to light. And again, now we have the opportunity to do exactly that.
Yeah, he sure is a hero, and so are you, Director. Look, our audience knows this, thanks to you and thanks to Devin Nunes. Our audience is well aware of what took place here, but we want to see accountability. Many of the statute of limitations have expired. It's been almost 10 years for many of these folks who did this. But John Brennan testified to Congress, and so did Hillary Clinton, within 5 years. I think it was in 2020, right, and then again in 2021. Are those statute of limitations still live? Tell me if, in fact, we could see a criminal prosecution here, as you just the other day, 3 weeks ago, have in fact referred criminal referrals to the DOJ?
Well, Maria, so part of what came out last week was about how John Brennan, Clapper, Comey, they all pushed the known fake Steele dossier into intelligence community assessments and as the basis for Crossfire Hurricane and all that. But what hasn't come out yet, and what's going to come out, is the underlying intelligence that I have spent the last few months making recommendations about final declassification and sent that to the Department of Justice that will come out in the John Durham report classified annex. And what that intelligence shows, Maria, is that part of this was a Hillary Clinton plan, but part of it was an FBI plan to be an accelerant to that fake Steele dossier, to those fake Russia collusion claims by pouring oil on the fire, by amplifying the lie and burying the truth of what Hillary Clinton was up to. And you're right, Maria. John Brennan testified to John Durham in August of 2020. He also testified to the House Oversight Committee in 2022. Hillary Clinton testified before John Durham under oath in 2022. James Comey testified before the Senate committee in September 2020. All of that's within the last 5 years. And much of that testimony is, frankly, completely inconsistent with what our underlying intelligence that is about to be declassified in the Durham Annex, what that reflects. And so, you know, Pam Bondi does have a strike force. It is a different Department of Justice, a different FBI, and an opportunity to look at how these people really did conspire to run a hoax, a fraud on the American people and against Donald Trump's presidency. And so coming forward, we understand that they did this, but now we need to understand how they did this. And I think that's why you see the left losing their minds over this, Maria, saying, why are you spending time? This is vindictive. You're going back. This is Donald Trump, you know, seeking retribution. It's not. Donald Trump's election by the American people.
All right, so this is not retribution. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. If you're new, go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this. It's not retribution. Anyone who thinks that it's retribution must listen to the following. Donald Trump was innocent, okay? He was an innocent man. If you're a morally superior liberal Democrat and you stumble upon this, or you're whatever, journalist, you know, left-leaning pundit, he was an innocent man. He was not working with Russia. It doesn't matter if you think President Trump is the end of the universe or that he's a terrible person. Your thoughts about Trump are completely irrelevant. He was innocent. He did not ever work with Russia. He never needed to. He never colluded with Russia. It was completely made up and a fake, phony hoax. It was a myth. It was a lie perpetrated by people who are obsessed with preventing misinformation. It was the greatest piece of misinformation and disinformation in American history. Well, it's either up there or the greatest. But he was innocent, and they tried to frame an innocent incoming president. There was never any evidence at all, not one shred of evidence pointed to Trump and Russia. And we can go back to the Clinton campaign emails. They actually wanted to elevate Trump. They wanted Trump as the Republican nominee. The Democrats literally wanted Trump in their own writing and emails as the Republican nominee. So how on earth could Russia have wanted him as well?
People was a statement, Maria. They said to everyone, we know what you did to Donald Trump, and we reelected him because we know this was all fake. We know it was a hoax. Now we want to understand how you did it so that it can't happen again. And that's what this declassification process that we're undergoing right now, what's going on, why it's so important, and why there can be accountability and preventability to prevent these same people that did it in 2016 with the Steele dossier, with the Hunter Biden laptop in 2020 from doing it again in the future.
So what I think I hear you saying is there is still an opportunity for indictments, potential prosecutions, accountability from those people who may have lied under oath, like John Brennan, James Comey, and perhaps Hillary Clinton?
Well, that's why I've made the referrals that I have. DNI Gabbard has made referrals, and why we're going to continue to share the intelligence that would support the ability of our Department of Justice to make bring fair and just claims against those who have perpetrated this hoax against the American people and this stain on our country.
Director, one other question on this. Tulsi, as well as President Trump, used the word treason. Is there a statute of limitations on treason?
Well, Maria, what I would say is this, is there is no doubt in my mind that the people that we just talked about conspired. They conspired against President Trump. They conspired against the American people. And so I'll leave it to Pam Bondi and our Department of Justice, Kash Patel and our FBI to investigate the conspiracy to do what and what charges that they're capable of bringing. But again, I don't think statute of limitations are going to impact, because in a conspiracy, Maria, the statute of limitation doesn't start to run until the last act in furtherance of that conspiracy. And Maria, part of why this is so important is the people behind this are still furthering the conspiracy. They're refusing to admit or acknowledge what they did in 2016 and what they did in 2020 was wrong. And so I think that's why this is so important and why I'm excited about what the American people will see very shortly and what's to continue to come.
So this is the CIA chief, the same position that was worshipped by media, and he's gleefully smiling because he knows what's going to happen the next year. This is why he's smiling. Hit subscribe if you're new to this channel. This is why almost certainly the CIA chief is smiling, because all of the people that tried to set up an innocent man, Brennan, Comey, Clinton, they knew Donald Trump was innocent. They knew that he was innocent. They did not care. They deceived millions upon millions of Americans. There was never any evidence of any collusion. The notion is completely absurd. Not only was there no evidence of collusion because the ICA was completely fabricated, and they had intelligence proving otherwise. But the idea is completely absurd. Why would Russia want you to know how corrupt Democrats are? To push you towards Trump? But inherent in knowing the corruption within the Democratic Party is the consequence of voting for anyone but Democrats. In this case, President Trump, who was, by the way, a great candidate. He was an amazing campaigner. And he defeated the Republican field very easily. And I was saying in 2016 that he was going to win and that Clinton was going to lose. In my writing in The Hill, the Huffington Post Salon, I said that numerous times. But let's continue.
We'll wait for that John Durham report and the annexed classified declassification and release of that in this week or in the upcoming week. But real quick before you go, Director, not only did the Russia collusion lie destroy people's lives, rip the country apart, but it also diverted energy and resources away from the real threats. So you have people like Adam Schiff, who is now a senator, completely ignoring the fact that Americans were relying on China for their critical elements that we need. For example, today, we rely on 90% of our prescription drugs for China. They're made in China. And so all of this was
100%.
going on, and they were yelling, Russia, 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 and in fact, not even focusing on the actual threats. That, in my view, is a dereliction of duty.
100%, Maria, completely agree. And don't limit it to China. So the mess that we just cleaned up, the Trump administration cleaned up with regard to Iran and its pursuit of a nuclear weapon, what's happening in Ukraine with Russia that we've inherited. And of course, our great news is, Maria, the good guys are in charge. And as Donald Trump is very clearly showing, we are fully capable of undoing the damage that they've done and addressing the threats to America by using law enforcement and the intelligence community the way it's supposed to be, to protect the American people, not to go after political opponents with fake, fraudulent schemes to maintain power.
So this, again, these are notes that were found. This is Comey's notes.
Russia, that wouldn't ring a bell. Now, what do we know now? We now found in a safe in a very remote area in the FBI, James Comey's notes 3 weeks later, dated September the 26th, 2016. In the note, he says, James Brennan, JB, HRC planned to tie Trump. In his own handwriting, we now know that he was briefed that Hillary Rodham Clinton planned to tie Trump 3 weeks after the briefing. So we got it in his own handwriting.
So let's go through that. Let's show the handwritten notes dated September 2016 by James Comey, indicating he was aware of intelligence that Hillary Clinton planned to tie Donald Trump to Trump Russia. It reads HRC or Hillary Clinton planned to tie Trump. This is about prosecutors substantiating.
So it's within his own notes. And that pertains to the conspiracy statutes. He knew. They all knew.
Substantiating the federal charge of lying to Congress and obstruction. It's about establishing a pattern of him lying about this in his recollections and his testimony to Congress. Go ahead, Congressman.
That's exactly right. And every day we're learning more about what was going on. We're learning more about how deep this weaponization, how deep this corruption was under Biden, under President Obama, and they ought to be held accountable. That's all that's happening here. All that's happening is accountability for people at the highest levels of government who weaponized the federal government against their political enemies, and they ought to be held accountable for it.
The operative word is he used the word plan. So he knew about the plan. He knew about the plan ahead of time. That's what's key here. Congressman Brandon Gill, thank you so much.
Hey, Georgia. It's
Consequences for bad faith deep state actors continue. Earlier today, the House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan referred former CIA Director John Brennan to the DOJ for prosecution over allegations that he made false statements to Congress about his role in the Russia collusion hoax. In his letter, Jordan said, in part, quote, making false statements before Congress is a crime that undermines the integrity of the committee's constitutional duty to conduct oversight. Anyway, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan is with us with more. I've read your letter to Pam Bondi. It is a, powerful prima facie case. He directly lied to Congress numerous times, and you believe you have the evidence.
Yeah, you're not supposed to lie, Sean, but you're definitely not supposed to lie when you're under oath talking to Congress. And that's exactly what it looks like John Brennan did. He said he wasn't involved with the dossier at all. He said that to us under oath. He said he didn't want it included in the intelligence community assessment, the report that's put together. But then ODNI Director Tulsi Gabbard declassified a report that said just the opposite. In fact, John Brennan put in writing that he felt the dossier should be included in the report. And more importantly, when he was confronted by an individual who works at the CIA, and the individual said, Mr. Brennan, this dossier just doesn't hold up. There's not the underlying intelligence to support it. And Brennan's response was, yeah, but doesn't it ring true? Showing his true color, showing that he was out to get President Trump. So we think he lied. We think it's clear. And I'll be, Sean, I don't do a lot of these. I've done very few referrals. You got to have the evidence to do this. We think it's there. We think it is clear. We appreciate what Tulsi released and declassified that report. And that's why we sent it to the Justice Department. And we'll see what the Attorney General Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Blanche do with it now.
They rejected the first intel assessment. Senior career intel officials at the CIA concluded there was no Trump-Russia collusion after the 2016 election. The declassified documents say Obama himself ordered it. And didn't they include, and didn't Brennan know, and wasn't he a part of the meeting that took place about a new intelligence assessment in this case?
Yeah. They changed the report between Election Day 2016, Inauguration Day in January 2017. They changed it in December, and they changed it to say something that wasn't supported by the intelligence. And then, to make matters worse, they go up to Trump Tower on January 6, 2017, and brief the president on the dossier that they know is garbage. that someone in the CIA who's familiar with the underlying intelligence told Director Brennan, you shouldn't use this. It doesn't hold up. But his response again was, doesn't it ring true? We're going to go up, set up President Trump, and create the predicate for Mueller and all the other garbage they did in his first term. And I always point out, this is when it all began. And remember, Sean, with John Brennan, there's a pattern. We include this in our letter. I think he lied to Congressman Gowdy back in 2017 about this very subject. We include that. And the irony, of course, is he lied under oath to us when we were questioning him about a different issue. The 51 former intel officials who signed that garbage letter saying the Hunter Biden laptop was a Russian information operation, which was pure garbage. So there's a pattern with Mr. Brennan. We illustrate that. But the clear evidence where he violated 18 U.S.C. 1001, we believe, is when he made those statements and then Director Gabbard, God bless her, released the declassified report that said something entirely different.
All right, Jim Jordan, we'll follow this closely. Thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity.
So the Mar-a-Lago raid was about trying to see what Trump knew, trying to get as much information from Mar-a-Lago, classified data, or once classified data, because Trump had the power to declassify. Check this out.
Exposed the Russia collusion hoax for what it was, a lie, on this program many times throughout the years. Former House Intelligence Committee Chairman and California Congressman, currently Trump Technology and Media CEO Devin Nunes. Also, Devin is serving currently as the chairman of the prestigious President's Intelligence Advisory Board. Devin, thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here in person.
Well, I'm happy that you're here because you've told our audience so many times what lies this Russia collusion story was. We wanted to talk about a timeline with you. What is your reaction to Tulsi Gabbard highlighting all of this these last 2 weeks?
Well, the part that was most important that she put out is that the PDB information, the Presidential Daily Brief, that information was never given to Congress. And so, but what was given to Congress was exactly the same thing that was in that disposed of PDB that just disappeared, that never made it anywhere. But a few weeks before that, the House Intelligence Committee, we're talking about all the way back in 2016, we were given that information, Maria, that the Russians and Trump, there was nothing to see there. And there was nothing to see once they went to brief Obama, and then somebody changed that. And I think that's what Director Tulsi Gabbard was able to get out a week ago. And then, of course, after that, she was able to put out our report that had been hidden from the American people, 40-page report that Chairman of the Intelligence Committee now, Rick Crawford, put out. So, transparency is key. I think listening to your earlier guests, it's important to remember that this is an ongoing conspiracy. It hasn't stopped. And the people that have hoisted this on the American people for the last nearly a decade have never paid one price, and they're continuing to do exactly the same thing that they've done for a while. Now, look, people are numb to it. At the end of the day, the American people rejected it. They overwhelmingly elected Donald Trump to be president of the United States. And the president has asked myself and all the people that he's put into these intelligence roles and these law enforcement roles, he just wants it cleaned up. He doesn't want, after all of this, after all the country's been through, what we'd like to do, and I think what the president really wants, is to clean up the FBI, clean up the Department of Justice. And part of that is having accountability for the people who perpetuated this ongoing hoax.
And as we look back on how they actually did it, because it was very effective, they actually got away with it, and they had a president.
Oh, they got away with it up until now. It was very effective. There are millions of people, millions upon millions of people who believe still that Russia wanted Trump. In journalism, in think tanks, in government. It's completely absurd how many people believe nonsense. And you know what's frightening? And we saw that 5 years ago. We see it today with Teslas and ICE agents. And we saw it 5 years ago with shutting down economies. There's a segment of the population, generally, that votes Democrat. I don't want to be, completely off base here, but there's a segment of the population that will believe anything and will go to extreme lengths to implement whatever quote-unquote experts or people in authority, whatever they decide or whatever they say is true, there are people who will go to extreme lengths to try to implement those edicts or those commandments or those objectives. So if you tell a certain part of the population, hey, you have to shut down your economy right now, it has to happen, they'll do it again. Even though we saw what took place, all the tragedy, the economic turmoil, the debt, lives either ruined or postponed, dreams postponed, and people have had to rise from the ashes because they were in a university or they were starting a business, and that all was crushed because governors decided to shut down their states completely. And they didn't have to do that. And again, the smartest people in the room, whether it's Enron or whether it's what happened 5 years ago or Trump Russia or the people that got us into the Vietnam War, we can go on forever. There's a segment of the population that will always kowtow to the smartest people in the room without any pushback. Oh my God, really? Trump was working with Russia? We have to shut down our economies? Oh my God, Tesla's evil? ICE agents are bad? It takes 3 to 4 weeks of media coverage, nonstop, to convince a certain segment of the population about anything. To get them full steam, going full steam. It's really frightening, and it's sad. And it's very sad how a human being could be manipulated that easily.
President, a duly elected president, on defense for 4 years. In the summer of 2016, before the election, Brennan tells everybody Hillary Clinton is up to no good. Let's walk through the timeline of how they achieved this.
And Director Ratcliffe brought this up, and he actually found it at the end of his tenure when he was the DNI under President Trump. So what Brennan never did during that time period, is tell us. He never came to me as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee in 2016 and said what he told Obama.
Tired of sifting through
in 17 and 18 and 19 and 20. He never said that, I had told Obama and these people about the Clinton, the Steele dossier and all of
that Clinton was coming out with a new story that Trump colluded with Russia.
Right, that happened in August of 16. He had a lot to say, but one of the things he didn't have to say was that he knew that this was a Clinton hoax. It wasn't until John Ratcliffe becomes the head of the DNI, he digs that up, he finds these handwritten notes where Brennan himself, and I'm sure if he wrote it down, he must have remembered. It's kind of an important point to remember that if one of the presidential candidates is cooking up a scheme, working with Russia and working with Russians to cook up this scheme. And then what you found out now from the report that we put out this week is also that the Russians knew about the scheme. So the only people that didn't know about the scheme were President Trump and the Republicans. We're the only ones that didn't know about a lot of this, and now we're digging this up years later.
So from around August to Thanksgiving, they were putting together a plan to actually go with it and push it forward. Then President Trump wins the election in 2016, and then the Steele dossier becomes something like an Obama dossier because President Obama decides to hide the real intelligence, which was Hillary was coming up with this scheme, and push forward fake intelligence, which was that Trump had something to do with collusion.
Yeah, and if you think about it, those two important briefings that occur after the election in 2016, one is to us, which we were briefed by the FBI and other intelligence agencies, and they said that, hey, we had the normal accountability during the election. Bad countries do bad things, but there was nothing unusual, and for sure nothing between Donald Trump and the Russians. That's Thanksgiving. The PDB that Director Gabbard released last week also says, exactly, almost identical as I remember it to what we were briefed on. And then something changes on December 9th. And so there's a lot of people that were in that meeting with Obama. Many of those people, graduated. They actually graduated up. They moved on. They got higher positions within the Justice Department. And look, I think what also can't be forgotten here is in this this ongoing hoax that jumps from Russia collusion to everybody forgets about. Remember the fake whistleblower on Ukraine and the impeachment? Then you move to the 51 spies who lie about the Hunter Biden laptop. But probably the biggest thing that still needs to be researched and the information needs to be put out to the American public. I'm not sure if the Justice Department is going to use it or not, but it's this. Why was there a raid at Mar-a-Lago? What led to that raid? What led to the appointment of that special counsel? What the hell were they doing at Mar-a-Lago? What were they looking for? This was an unprecedented act in U.S. history.
They were looking for almost certainly information on everything they were doing against Trump. They wanted to know, well, what did Trump have on us?
Where the Department of Justice raids a former president's home. So, look, it's great that we look in the past, and I'm glad that and it's important to understand the past. But that raid on Mar-a-Lago wasn't very long ago. That was an attempt. Whatever they were looking for, whatever scheme they had cooked up, whatever they were looking for, they didn't find, clearly. But that was to try to stop President Trump from being reelected.
Unbelievable.
That's all it was. And so there's a lot more to do with that. I'm happy that the Justice Department has this strike force. And look, I'm going to, as chairman of the President's Intelligence Board, I'm going to try to get out as much of this information and get it declassified as possible.
So you believe that they raided Mar-a-Lago because they were looking for this? They were looking for the intelligence community assessment, your report on Russia's influence campaign targeting the 2016 presidential election. That's why they raided Mar-a-Lago?
I believe it had to be one of the things that they were looking for. Because look, that report is pretty damning. If people take the time to read it, it's 45 pages. It's spent, we had a dedicated team that spent nearly 2 years down at the CIA looking through this. It was blocked from getting out, and the reason that report is so important, right? That's let's just dumb it down. Simply put, we went through every single piece of intelligence that existed, and if anything, it was clear that if Putin was going to do anything, he probably wanted Hillary Clinton to win. But in fact, if you just apply a little common sense to it, the fact was that nobody around the world thought that President Trump was going to win in 2016. Same with Vladimir Putin. He didn't either. And so when you go through that was the intelligence, every piece of intelligence that
I was telling people in my writing that Clinton was going to lose. The polls were slowly showing that she was going to lose. Let's continue.
Existed is we went through it. It's in that report. And what do we know? What do we, after all this, after all, Trump and Russia and collusion, the two people that didn't collude, Trump and Russia. That's what we found out. We know that Clinton colluded. We know the DNC colluded. You had John Podesta on earlier, sitting there lying on television. He cooked that whole damn thing up. He had to be part of the team that cooked that up for the Clinton campaign.
Let me get your take on this strike force. Do you think the DOJ's strike force will be able to actually give us accountability? Everything's now going to flow through this strike force, right?
Yeah, and look, and eventually, I'm assuming once they gather all this information, you broke news this morning with John Ratcliffe saying that there was additional information in the Durham report. I've never seen that. So that will be new. That'll be new information. I think once you compile that, then the strike force will have to work with real investigators, unlike the investigators, these fake investigations that have gone on. So I'm confident that between the Trump Justice Department, working with Kash Patel and Bongino over at the FBI, they'll have a real team of people that will actually look at this in its entirety, get to the bottom of it, and then at that point, there's no question, John Ratcliffe, as you know, made criminal referrals. Don't forget, I made a dozen criminal referrals as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. So, those are all sitting over there somewhere. So hopefully the conspirators will be held accountable.
I want to talk.
So there are a lot of people that were referred criminally for the past 10 years, and nothing happened because you had one political faction within the U.S. government leveling the government against another political faction. This is not allowed, and it's stopping. I mean, people are going to be indicted and convicted and serve prison time. Now, I don't know if Clinton will ever serve prison time, but Hillary Clinton will be indicted. That's for sure.
Grand jury has subpoenaed 3 high-ranking Obama-era officials because, of course, when you're a communist, spying on your enemies and having secret police is all part of the deal. And so the Justice Department is now, under Donald Trump, investigating, and they have the Trump-Russia probe.
Sources telling Fox News more subpoenas are on the way. Chinley Painter here with the latest details. Good morning, Chinley.
Hey, guys. So law enforcement sources to Fox News Digital say that up to 30 subpoenas related to the probe will be issued in the coming days. It's all part of the Justice Department's investigation into the origins of the Trump-Russia probe. We know a federal grand jury has subpoenaed former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. The Brennan investigation came after CIA Director John Ratcliffe this summer declassified a new lessons learned review that determined the CIA, FBI, and National Security Agency's Intelligence Community Assessment, or the ICA, examining Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential election, deviated from intelligence standards that led to some, quote, procedural anomalies. And records also declassified further revealed that Brennan pushed for this Steele dossier, a discredited anti-Trump document, to be included in that 2017 ICA, even though he testified differently to the House Judiciary Committee in May 2023. Here is Brennan commenting in July about the FBI criminal investigation.
I'm really shocked that, individuals who are willing to sacrifice their reputations, their credibility, their decency to continue to do Donald Trump's bidding on something that clearly is just politically based.
As far as Strzok and Page, they first came under scrutiny in 2018 when the Justice Department uncovered a series of anti-Trump text messages between them. Both were assigned to work on Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team in 2017. And Strzok, he's the FBI agent who in July 2016 opened the FBI's initial Russia investigation. Guys?
So they had agents like Strzok covering for Hillary Clinton and then going after Trump. We all knew this. I mean, this was obvious. Comey and Strzok have never told anyone. Who knows if they know? They almost certainly know. But none of these agents have ever told anyone. Brennan, none of these people have ever told anyone how Hillary Clinton transferred, or her team was able to acquire top secret intelligence onto servers outside of the United States government. It's impossible to do from a cybersecurity perspective, and it's obviously not only illegal, it's a national security risk beyond belief.
All right. Chinley, thank you very much.
And, it's so important to keep in mind that the biggest fracture of the, we talk about constitutional crises, the biggest fracture, I think, in our lifetime was when the Obama administration decided at the height of a presidential campaign that they were going to launch a federal investigation into the campaign, into their opponent, their leading opponent. And everything that has happened since then is downstream from that decision. And it was a decision made in the Oval Office by Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and all of those characters.
Yeah. And it had such a pernicious effect because then January 6th came and they thought, oh, now we've got this news, January 6th, oh. And then they tapped into the phones of over 160 members of Congress. We're looking at Operation Arctic Frost. And they're trying to dig into that as well. But you're right, this weaponization of government, this very communist idea of I'm going to use intel agencies that are meant to capture terrorists to go after my own political opponents. And I'm going to use the government to take down a president who was duly elected and concoct this whole Russia collusion thing, which, by the way, also had really weird implications on our foreign policy, because all of a sudden the president couldn't deal with Russia in any normal way because he was being accused of having won because of Russia. This thing was so toxic, and it all starts with Obama. When you look at Mamdani winning here in New York City as a communist, don't think about Mamdani. Think about Obama. Everything bad that's happened. Go back to Obama.
My first question, by the way, if I was doing the interviews, would be, are you guys still dating? Because remember, Strzok and Page.
Strzok and Page, the lovers.
I think
the lovers who could smell the
trouble
Trump.
in paradise
They could smell the Trump voters in Walmart,
That's right.
remember?
So again, nothing good happens when you go after Trump. It's really like there's like a Trump curse, kind of, sort of, for anyone that goes after him. I mean, it's, if there's divine intervention, thank God. I mean, look, you had a man who lost his life saving his family in Butler, Pennsylvania. And it's interesting how media doesn't do any investigative journalism on what happened. But President Trump moved this man, the firefighter, heroically saved his family and lost his life in Butler, Pennsylvania. And Trump survived, thank God. Be here tonight, later tonight, for the live stream, 9 o'clock. Sorry about last night's live stream, ladies and gentlemen. It was postponed to today, so it's kind of like, but we will have huge live stream today at 9 p.m. Eastern. Be here. God bless you all. Thanks, everybody. Go to